What is going on, everyone? Welcome back once again to the VOV Network, where great things are always happening. My name is Bryan Murray, and welcome to our live stream here on Saturday. We have a very exciting show for you because we're doing something new and different we've never done before. So please stick around, check it out, as because it's going to be a very dynamic day that we're getting into. Bridget, how are you doing?
I am doing great. I'm excited about this new thing. I'm excited about this new thing.
Yes, same here, same here. So again, welcome to the VOV Network. I am Bryan Murray. I'm joined here with my co-host Bridget from Building Bridges Mentorship and Outreach, and we're going to continue this as part two of our previous session where we got into talking about mental bandwidth. And in the previous session, we really were sharing what mental bandwidth is all about. Talk some ways to identify, where you are on a scale of your strength dealing with mental bandwidth, and then maybe some ways to go about increasing it if that's something that you really need to focus in on. This session kind of picks up where that session left off because what we're going to really dive deeply into today, which was really where all of the difference really is made, and that is the action piece of it. Now that you understand it, we've identified it, you see where the gaps or the deltas may be. Now you have to figure out, okay, what do I do about that? So we're going to get focused in on a plan of action, very specific, very detailed, what that'll look like so you can start moving your way down that road of creating a stronger, more resilient mental bandwidth so that the world doesn't seem to overwhelm you. That's what we're going to get into today. Stick around. Let's check it out. And welcome back. So, Bridget, how about you share a little bit about where we are with this process and why we felt having a follow on part two was going to be of value to everybody?
In our prior session, we talked about what is mental bandwidth, right? And the ways that we can strengthen our mental bandwidth. So, and then we had some audience that chime in and comment about what they do and what would be better, what they saw that was working for them. And so we came up with the next part two as a plan of action so we can share our actions. Our
Hmm.
guests can share theirs as well. And then our audience can come in and kind of, if they were on there before, repeat what they said or see if those plan actions are working for them. And we said we would talk about that a lot later. But I believe that it is so pivotal in tuning in to that right channel, right, of your mental
Hmm.
bandwidth, and seeing what the capacity of frequency that you're able to hold, in order to show up as your best self.
Hmm.
We have to come up with an action plan to remove the static, so to
Mm.
speak, to
Mm.
show up for ourselves and for others from a place of strength, from a place of clarity.
Absolutely. And I love the way, we put that as our topic, get tuned in to the right channel and, making sure that you are. And the reason we use that is as we walk through this today, definitely take this from the standpoint and understand that it's your plan. Don't look at our plan and say, okay, I need to take Bridget's plan or Brian's plan and implement that in my life, because we're all on different journeys. And that's why we use the term channel, because your channel is going to be different from my channel. And then again, different from Bridget's channel as we work our way through this. So absorb this information and then try to restructure it and put it back into a way that fits your life, your world, the dynamics that you have going on, because that's what it's really all about. That's where it's going to have the impact and make the difference you need it to, because you have taken the information and essentially adjusted it and tweaked it in a way that's going to work in the dynamics of your life and your lifestyle and all of the different things that you may have going on that are obviously going to be different from each and every other individual that's out there. So that's a key component to it. And then the
Absolutely.
last thing that I want to also just chime in and say, if you have comments, if you have questions, anything like that as we go through the session, definitely type those in because we want to make this as interactive and engaging as possible. So please share your thoughts. Please share your comments, and we'll answer your questions or respond to your thoughts and comments that you put out there, because I think it's important that we share as much as we possibly can within our community here at VOV, to help support and grow each other. And that's the objective of everything that we're doing.
In the aspect of sharing, if you're on Facebook Live right now, hit that share button. Share this
Yeah,
knowledge with your friends and your family as well. Before you even get comfortable in the conversation, share that with someone else.
absolutely. And then, as I mentioned at the beginning of this, doing something totally new, totally different today for from a VOV live stream standpoint, and that is we are actually having two additional guests join us today. So there are going to be four people involved in today's session. We're all going to share our perspectives on mental bandwidth, some of our personal history and challenges we might have had with it, and then also give you some tidbits off of our individual action plans and why we came up with the things that we did and how we intend to use them to better our own mind space and capacity and keep ourselves tuned into the right channel. So that said, I'm actually going to bring them into the session and we'll introduce and have them share and join in what's going on today. Well, welcome, guys. How you guys doing?
Hello.
Hey.
So we have Shantae and Chris joining us this morning, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves. That way you get a feel for who they are and why they wanted to join. And we'll do ladies first. So Shantae, if you'll say hello to everybody.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. Hi, everyone. I am Shantae Hollins. I am the CEO of Shantology Speaks. I am Shantology Speaks in business form. And I am a certified master life coach and a growth and transformation expert. My mission is to help men and women transform their lives in the way that I think is the most sustainable, and that's from the inside out. So I'm really excited about this topic. And I appreciate Brian and Bridget for allowing me to be here to share, because mental bandwidth is everything. That's where it starts, in the mind. So I look forward to this conversation.
Great. It's our pleasure to have you.
Mm-hmm. And
Chris, you want to
Chris,
go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Christopher Black. I'm the president and CEO of a company called Command Network Solutions out here in Honolulu, Hawaii. We provide support for companies that have network issues, security issues, anything that's wired or wireless. And I'm also the new general manager for a local burger establishment that's on the rise out here. One of the things that I really love about what I do is, and Brian and I have talked about this gazillion times over, is we're at a stage in our lives where we're trying to give the knowledge back. So I'm fortunate, and it's a double-edged sword, but getting a chance to work with younger people, trying to get younger people's ear, which we all know is because we all have kids. I'm sure that's the trick, is to get those young people, because they're so smart. I mean, the kids are so smart today, and they have, unlike when we grew up, the information just comes to their hand. We had to go out and find that information. So you can imagine what that does with young people, because they think they know it all of a sudden. Well, I'm here to tell you that you don't know it all. Quick caveat: I've got a 30-something daughter that I'm dealing with right now, and her up and down life that she's living. So, and it's a challenge every day. I genuinely enjoy working with these young folks, especially when I could see that I've made, when I point across. I mean, sometimes you only get one point across one day, but the fact that I get that means a lot to me. You know what I mean? Absolutely. It really does. If as I said, you can only affect one life, then you did something good, and you have to put it on that level. You know what I mean?
Yep. You do.
I can't cure everybody. But if I can get one along the way, one turns into two turns into three, and so on and so forth. So that's kind of one of my mission statements today with my life. And it fulfills me, and it gives me a lot of energy, and it helps with my mental bandwidth. So anyway.
Awesome. Well, Chris, thanks for joining. Thanks for sharing that. And we're going to move forward. So we're going to bring in and we're going to share some information with you and actually walk through a sample of an action plan so you can get an actual hands-on visual of what that may look like. And we're going to talk our way through that. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that into the session now, and we'll all chime in and share what we want to share. As we said, mental bandwidth, we're talking about, getting tuned into the right channel, why that's important. And again, why we say that is each individual's channel may be a little bit different. So getting tuned into your specific channel that's really going to be most beneficial to you is the objective of what we're trying to get done today. Before we go forward, I do want to go back just really quickly and talk about where we kind of left off from the last session, just from what mental bandwidth is all about. And this goes back to a chart that I had as part of the previous session. And really, we're just talking about all of the different things that impact you day to day, week to week, month to month as you go through your life. And you've got, emotional things coming in, you've got mentally challenging things coming in, and think of it, as I said, like a funnel. That funnel's getting full, but that funnel also has a bottleneck because the top is obviously much larger than the bottom piece of the funnel. And that's that choke point. That's why I put it here, kind of highlighted in red, to say, that's that point of feeling that you're overwhelmed. There's too much coming in. Can't process your way through it. It's challenging to your mind, your body, and your spirit. And you can actually only manage so much, your true capacity. So what this action plan is geared to do is to do one of two things: either increase your capacity, meaning what you can actually process through, because what's going in, it just is what it is, or figuring out maybe how to pare down what's actually going in the top. So actually make the top smaller so that the gap between how much is going in and that point where it's just squeezed so tight, it's much narrower. That way you can actually manage it a little bit better. So instead of the funnel looking like this, the funnel maybe looks like this and becomes more manageable. So that's the review I wanted to get back into before we move forward. So let's jump into the actual slide. So plan of action, to channel your mental bandwidth. So again, get a channel, get it focused in. And I always kind of focused on this and said, you know what? I think of this kind of like a garden. And you got a new plot of grass out there, or actually in this case, dirt. Nothing in it. There's absolutely nothing planted in the garden. You just went out, made sure all of the weeds were gone, the soil is healthy, it's all fertile, it's ready to grow whatever you want to plant in it. So think of this action plan in that very same way. It's like fresh dirt. You can plant anything in it you want. So the questions then become, what do you plant or put into your plan, your garden, that are going to help you continue to grow and cultivate a stronger, more capable mental bandwidth? So as we go through this, you will see that the recurring theme that we use is cultivate, which again ties back to garden. You're cultivating the garden, you're growing whatever it is you're growing. So the first bullet point that we want to talk about is, what are you going to do that's going to help cultivate trust, faith, and belief? And we put an example on, and then all of us are going to kind of talk through this and share some of the things from a personal experience that we have that fits this category. But the example is here. Exercise the belief of knowing that I'm made of strength and struggle, right? And that's a really interesting thing, because that's a paradox, right? You're talking about strength on one side, but you're talking about struggle on the other.
Absolutely.
And what you're doing there is you're saying, you know what? I am made of both. I know that I have to have strength, but I also know that there are going to be struggles, and I've got to figure out how to. There's never really going to be a balance of those two, but you just have to figure out how to navigate your way through both sides of that. Keep and maintain and have that strength, but also deal with the struggles that also come along with just life in general, and know that that's not just what you're made of, but that's what life is made of, and be able to have the mental bandwidth and the capacity to continue to work your way through it. Team, what thoughts do you have on that?
Well, I'll just go and just talk about my plan of action in terms of trust and faith and belief. So one thing that I do in exercise and belief and faith is speak affirmations of faith and positive words, and meditate on positive outcome that I want to transpire in my life. Mm-hmm. So so that we know that we are this, and we've talked about this, we are the sum of all of our experiences, all of our life experiences, right? And mm-hmm. through every struggle that I have faced, I've gained strength. And that's in so many areas of my life, right? And so those struggle strength experience have shaped the person I am today, and will continue to shape the person that I am and would become, as I face future struggles.
Mhm.
Also, I said before, I've adopted the Serenity Prayer, and
Yes.
that prayer, it
Yes.
basically just asks for strength, courage, and wisdom.
Right.
So that's
Okay.
one of my strategies. And guess, what's your input?
Shantae, Chris, anything to add?
Sure.
Oh
My
yeah.
thought, oh, sorry, Chris.
No. Go ahead. I'll
My
jump in
thought,
there.
I agree with what's been said. Just to add something a little bit different, part of my plan is to give myself permission to be vulnerable.
Mm,
Trust and faith and belief all require a level of risk, right? You're
Mm.
believing in something, you're trusting something, you're having faith in something, and you don't know the outcome. And
right.
so, vulnerability for me personally is a little difficult because I like to plan. I plan everything. I want to know how to start, what it's going to look like in the middle, how it's going to finish. But I can't be that and trust and have faith and believe in the same time. So I give myself permission to be vulnerable, to allow God to come in and do whatever He wants to do in my life. So vulnerability and risk really jumped out at me when I was thinking about how to cultivate those three things.
Absolutely. Thank you. That's powerful. Actually,
That
that's
is
very powerful.
powerful.
Yeah. Thank you, Chris. What did you want to chime in on that?
Well, I want to really focus on this strength, this struggle versus strength.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly believe that you develop strength through struggle.
Mm.
Um, I think part of this equation, there's obviously a lot of layers to this. Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
um, one of the things is understanding who you are and what's important to you. I think that's huge because what happens is one of the things that my folks told me coming up was people like seeing you where they like seeing you. And the
Mm.
moment, a lot of us are obviously we're mold breakers. And I think
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people struggle with the idea of breaking a mold because society has told us where they want us to be, especially at, who we are as, POCs, people of color. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I think you have to be honest about it, who you are, what you're about, what you want. Sprinkle in the power to say no. I mean, that's something that I'm a recovering people pleaser. Okay, so let me
we
put that
we
out.
had
As
that
am
discussion.
I. As am I.
I'm in recovery. All right.
We're
Yes.
all in
So
recovery.
yeah, so so what I have done is, like I said, and there's struggle at every turn. I mean, when someone approaches you, like you guys were talking about this earlier, when someone approaches you and says, "Hey, I want you to do this for me," or and a lot of it's good stuff, but it's like, no, that doesn't work for me today. You know what I
Mm.
mean? And
Yeah.
being comfortable with
The
saying that
power of
while
no. The
The
power
power
of
of
yeah.
no.
no.
But and I don't know about you folks, but my thing is you wonder if you're offending someone. And it shouldn't be a consideration, but it is. You know what I mean?
Mm.
It's like I've got this group of young people I'm working with now, and I'm very strong with my beliefs. I'm very strong with what I've been tasked to do with this organization. And that's kind of my struggle, even though I know that what we're trying to do is absolutely wonderful. I struggle with that speed bump, that emotional speed bump that says, are they going to accept what I'm trying to bring to the table? You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? That's the
Mm-hmm.
daily, hourly, thing that I deal with. And what I found is, just in my general everyday movements, regardless of whether it's personal or professional, it's being consistent in my behavior and thought and message that I'm delivering. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I've been taught that consistency pays.
Yep.
So, I just try to do that. And like I said, you guys have a lot of great, I'm not being, uh, condescending to the process, but cultivate, enhance, and preserve are really at the heart of a lot of this. Um,
Mm. Mm-hmm.
uh, so what else? The other thing is that I've been trying to do is develop mental energy reserves.
Mm-hmm.
So we talk about that mental bandwidth, but you also have to create energy reserves within that mental bandwidth so you can lean back on at
Yeah.
times.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I
You
mean?
have to
Yep.
store it.
Yep.
One
And
of
we're
the
gonna that comes in a little bit later too when we're talking
Yeah.
about a couple different things, the rest and play piece as well as the calmness and stillness. So hold on to that one. We'll bring that one
Okay,
into
I got
a
some
little bit
more for
more.
that too. So
I'm sure you do. So jumping forward then, Bridget, you want to talk about resilience?
Create a self-reflection day to stay mindful about my behavior. And I'm just going to go into what I do. My plan of action for um, creating a resilient spirit. So what that looks like for me is planning some self-reflection time, okay?
Hmm.
And to reflect, to resolve, to restore, and really to resolve some heavy emotions that I tend to cover up,
Hmm.
or the numbing behavior that I display as a result of those hard emotions, right? And so what to cultivate a resilient spirit for me looks like I need to lean in into those uncomfortable conversations and that discomfort and deal with it. On the flip side of that, though, I reflect on the positive energy that I'm storing, just like as Chris was talking about. I reflect on the positive energy that I'm restoring, and that kind of cultivates my resilience as well.
Hmm.
When I cultivate those positive energies. Another thing I'm learning to do, and this has been really hard for me, is feel my feelings.
Mm.
Um, in the last 9 months, and I'm being very transparent, I've experienced some losses, some major disappointments, some difficulties setting boundaries, and I really had not felt my feelings, right? As you know, this will be my first Mother's Day without my mom. And
Hmm.
so I've had to deal with the prior holidays as well and kind of push through that. And as a defense mechanism, I was dealing with it with busyness.
Hmm.
Going out, shopping, eating. Um,
Eating. And
so
eating.
I'm learning to feel the feelings, whatever feelings those are, whether they are some negative emotions or positive. I'm learning to sit with those feelings for a while and process them, so that I can move on, to a place of peace. So
Hmm.
that's my strategy for cultivating a resilient spirit.
Yeah. And that's huge when you say that and you share that, because that's the biggest piece, I think, of the resiliency. Because I had a note for myself, and it's revolving around the self reflection piece of it, right? Looking back at self, and that is where I try to go to find that strength to be resilient, right? To dig it within, right, and focus in that direction. So I can completely relate, because a lot of that is tied to your emotional self at that moment, how you're dealing with your true feelings, because you are really trying to get very introspective and find strength and courage to be resilient from that. So I feed off of a very similar thing.
And a lot of
Shantae.
times when you're not feeling your feelings, you still have that clutter, right? And so you
Mhm.
can't create a space for resiliency because you still have all that clutter. So when you feel your feelings and process them, and even if you come to some resolve, then you clear that space, and that strengthens your bandwidth as well.
Absolutely. Well, what about Shantae? Chris, anything to add on that?
I think it's
well,
important to really center yourself. So in line with what you both said with in regards to feeling your feelings, but also just being centered and look at everything in proper perspective. A lot of times
Hmm.
we get overwhelmed, we see things as being bigger than they are. And when you stop and center yourself, then you're able to feel your feelings, you're able to take into perspective what really is going on, not just what you perceive, and then you can
Hmm.
come up with a plan to bounce back, resiliency, right? Bounce back and come through whatever it is you're going through. But I often find what I used to do and what I see in a lot of my clients is they just see what's on the surface, and they react to that, and it's a lot of times much bigger.
You have to dive deeper. Yes.
You have to dive
Right,
deeper.
right. What the situation is. So taking a moment to just center. You don't have to have an answer right that second. Get yourself together, feel your feelings, identify what's truly going on. Then you can make the plan to go through it and come out successfully.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
That is the resolve. That is the
Chris,
resolve.
you got something to share on that?
Oh yeah. I definitely think at the forefront of all of this is just being honest with your feelings and with situations. Like I said, I prefaced earlier that, I'm a recovering people pleaser. So, a lot of times what that involves is we're looking for the answer that they want. We're trying to give them the answer that they want. And that's not, and 9 times out of 10, it doesn't equate. So what I've been really working on, and you work on it every day. I don't think you ever master it. Is that ability to tell the truth. I've got friends. I've got some absolutely wonderful people that are in my life, my colleagues, mentors, friends, people we call, even friends that we call family. But you just be honest about it. I've been accused on multiple occasions. Like I post stuff. So I post stuff. If you're elevated in thought, you can probably figure out what I'm talking about, because I don't give you specifics. I don't give you things you can pinpoint. You can't say, "Oh, that happened over there." I know what he's talking about, but I'm giving you an overview of how my emotions is. So I've got a couple of friends of mine who are very guarded, and I'll get there. Like my one friend who's just a great mentor to me. His wife will come up. She's like, "Well, you sound like you were suicidal in that post." I said, "Only in the morning, sweetheart. Only in the morning." Okay. But because I may have been feeling like that. I mean, I like you. I think you said that you had experienced some loss, some disappointments, and some challenges. I too started the year out. I mean, I 2021 I thought was a good bounce back year, and I thought we were just going to keep rolling. And the year started off just going sideways on me, and it was tough. I mean, I was struggling. I mean, I really was, and I didn't know how to. I mean, to be honest with you, I didn't know how to deal with it. I mean, and you would think, based on everything I know and have felt, and my experiences in life, and some, that I would automatically know how to handle it. Well, I didn't. I'm not good. I've never been good with death. You were talking about losing your mother. I've never been good with death. I admit that. I mean, wholeheartedly. My mother died 14 years ago, and I'm just making peace with it. You know what I mean? But I've been honest about that. You
don't know where you are until you're there. You don't know how you will react until you're in it. And so some things come when you, like you said, you had a great year, a great bounce back year. Sometimes situation will come and just knock you off track. And like you said, you would think that because you knew how to handle everything else, and because you would know how to handle that. And the same with me, I had thought, because I mentor, I would have thought that I would have known how to handle it. And I thought I was handling it until I started to feel my feelings and noticed that I was just covering it. I was also displaying some numbing behavior that also put on a facade that I was handling it, and I was not. And so me feeling my feelings was very difficult for me, because then I had to expose everything I was feeling about everything, and I just couldn't pick what I wanted to deal with. And so it's been a journey, even in the last 2 weeks, it's been a journey. So I mean, I would like to say I'm looking forward to continue, but I can tell you in the place that I am just today, I don't look forward to it, but I know that it's a cultivating process. So,
can I ask you a question? Can I ask a question? When you're in your feelings, do you sometimes feel like you're crazy?
That's a strong word, Chris.
Well,
I've been told I was crazy. So
I'm asking, do you feel that way?
I don't feel like I'm crazy in the sense of I'm losing mentally. I'm losing it. What I do is kind of kind of check out. So it's like, why would I think that way, right? Not me. Like, why would I even go there with those thoughts? Or why would I, you talk about feelings all the time, Bridget. Why would you cover up feelings? So it wasn't that I thought I was crazy, but I was just it wasn't my character.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, okay. That's different. Same.
Yeah. I didn't think I was crazy. I mean, I wasn't going into these full out tantrums or, these grieving tantrums. I had not experienced that yet just because of the situation. But I will tell you that I have had some crying sessions that I did not allow myself to do it before.
Well, let me amend that. Right quick. So I guess maybe crazy was a poor choice of a word. I'm going to say that. So what I'm going to say is, did you feel awkward? Did you,
I felt awkward because I pretty much try to, most people won't think so, but I pretty much try to keep my feelings intact. So I thought, but so selective feelings intact. So for me to kind of explore all the different feelings and why I was feeling that way, it was awkward for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's because we're not taught to express our feelings. If you think about growing up, and I only know Bridget personally, but we're told stop crying. Males are told to man up. It doesn't hurt that bad.
Boys don't cry.
That's what we're told growing up. We're told that our feelings aren't valid.
Right.
Unless you're happy and joyful, we should not cry. We should not hurt and be upset, and all feelings are natural and necessary. And so when you become our age and you're going through things, then we don't know how to process them because we've been taught the opposite. And so that's why when you get to a place where life forces you to feel the grief and the anger and the disappointment, then it feels awkward because it's not something we're used to.
And I like when you said the feelings are necessary. That is on point.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, can I chime in?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm gonna throw in another piece, and Brian, you know about this because I don't hide. One thing I don't hide from Bryan Murray. So he has really been he's a sounding board for me. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I have so much trust in our relationship that I know I can bring things to him, and he gets it. And it's not about the fix. Sometimes it's not about the comments. Sometimes it's just about me releasing the valve. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I'm going to expose myself a little bit. I am a strong believer in therapy, huge believer in therapy. I've had I've had a couple failed marriages, and I learned about therapy through those failed marriages. I'm a firm believer. I don't, it's kind of like none of us are dentists, so we don't work on our teeth. You know what I mean? I'm not, you have an issue, you have a toothache, you're not going to go in the bathroom and work on your teeth. And I'm also a firm believer that I'm not the expert to work on my mind. Yes, I lean on Brian for certain things, but I also believe in the sanctity of that particular profession to be able to help me out. So I have no problem with paying somebody to talk to them about my issues and really, that's what they get paid to do. You know what I mean? It's obviously a trust thing. It's a trust thing in that particular arena, but you should find if it's that bad, you should find somebody to talk to. You just need. And as you said earlier, I can't remember who said it. We're not conditioned like that growing up. I didn't know about therapy when I was in my 20s. You know what I mean? I had no clue. I thought that was for crazy people. It's not. It's just not for crazy people. It's for people that are actually trying to live their lives and trying to make something of their lives. It's the less road traveled, I guess is the phrase you would say.
Absolutely. So, a lot of time men, and it's funny that you would say that. I know that with women, we explore that option. We want somebody to talk to because we like to talk, right? And what we like to talk about most is our problems. And so we will explore that option of a therapist. And so, but for men, until here recently, that's not heard of. You just,
it was a sign of weakness.
Yeah, it really is a sign of, you just go to the bar with your friends and y'all talk about it and you come home and you're okay. You don't go to a therapist. And so I applaud you for that. And I hope, an audience that's listening now can I relay that message back to their loved ones, to men, because even during the pandemic, that's a perfect example of the necessity of a therapist at right now, and men especially, because men were the sole provider of their household in some cases, and so they lost their jobs, um, or they got less hours because of the pandemic, and so definitely moving forward to where we are now, like in our new normal,
Mm-hmm.
that's a need. Therapy is definitely a need. What do you think,
Yep.
Bryan?
I could not agree more. And it's funny. There's so many levels to it, especially from a man's perspective, where we have to really be conscious and aware of being okay with it, and seeking that help when you need it. It brought to my mind when you were talking about, the girlfriends getting together and they talk about their different issues from a socioeconomic standpoint, especially for Black men. Our place for that was the barbershop, of all places. But that was
Exactly.
where, right? Which are not as common as they used to be anymore, right? But that was the purpose of the corner barbershop, is the men would gather there and everybody knew everybody's name and blah, blah, blah. And they would hang
Yeah.
and talk and they would socialize about the struggles of what's just happening in their lives, their community, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's a vibe and a flavor. Maybe we need to figure out how to get that back into our world. It might not be at the barbershop, but we need those types of things to be able to have that connection and that mental release. I think that's very important for us.
Right. I applaud men that explore that option, because it, like you said, it used to be the barbershop. Barbershops now are totally different than the little corner barbershop that that it
Yeah,
was
that's
before.
right.
So, to sit around and talk about your business in the barbershop. Now they have women in the barbershop. They have, women barbers. So the
Yeah.
whole dynamic has
Well, dynamic
changed.
has changed, right?
So
Exactly.
it's not as comfortable as it was before, where you can go and tell your business like the women do with beauty shops.
Yep.
So we can go to
Well,
the salon.
let's move forward because we got a lot more to cover. So we'll keep this session rolling. Thanks everybody for that, because that's just great information. Let's move on to the next thing here, where we're talking about cultivate, play, and rest. And one of the first bullet points, this is a sample that I put on here. Is just give myself the gift, and literally, trust me, it is a gift of 7 hours of sleep per night. And I know Chris is over there banging his head on the table because we have the sleep discussion weekly about the not getting enough or getting the quality sleep, and how that impacts everything, your mental space, your emotional space, your energy, your patience, your level of frustration, just all of the things that are intertwined in not getting the proper rest that your body needs. So that's highest on my personal list right now, is to try to find a way to get some things reeled in a bit so that I can give myself that gift, literally, of getting a little bit more sleep.
And without getting into the health benefits of getting that, and I picked 7 because that is a realistic um, time frame. I wouldn't say 8 to 9, even though health professionals recommend it. But 7 is a realistic time, and it really does change your day. It clears the fog mentally, and it allows you to be more productive in your workspace or in your day. Again, you like you said, you have to plan 7 hours of sleep. You have to plan it. And what I do, and I think we've talked about this before, I just count down where I am now. And if it's 9:30, and I'm looking at what I'm doing at this time, I'm thinking, okay, well, I have to be up at 6. So I need to be and I need to be in the bed by 10:30 and sleep by 11. Okay, or I need to be asleep by 12. I count those hours, even if I'm out, and that may sound really strange, but even if I'm out and I'm thinking, okay, well, I need to go home because I need 6 hours or 7 hours of sleep, so I need to be asleep by a certain time to get up at a certain time. And
Hmm.
but it does change your day. It does change
Hmm.
your day. You
Absolutely.
and I have talked about the lack of
Hmm.
the 7 hours of sleep. And I mean, you may be running on adrenaline the whole day or the whole week, but you'll soon crash.
Crash. Right. Right.
You'll soon crash. So that is
Shante,
that is one way that I cultivate rest.
yep. Very important.
Yeah.
In cultivating play, And I never have a problem with the play part. But I plan to, what I'm doing now is spending more time in doing activities with people who love and accept me, or hobbies that bring me joy, or explore the inner child in me and do something that I've never done before. And that kind of cultivates enthusiasm and excitement. That we definitely need that as part of our mental bandwidth.
Yep.
So those are my
Absolutely.
strategies.
I also think taking time away from electronics. We don't realize.
Oh, please.
I'm gonna tell you why I'm laughing in just a minute.
No, Bryan, we're talking about this now.
She said we're talking about it, Bryan.
The sleep is,
Apparently.
sleep is everything, and I'm a person that don't get enough sleep, so that is definitely a part of my plan. But also, just electronics. I'm a workaholic, unfortunately. I won't say unfortunately because I have big dreams, so it requires work.
Go
But
for big dreams.
I had to take a look at just a normal day for me. And the majority of my day, if I'm not asleep, I'm in front of some sort of electronic. I'm at a computer working. I am on my phone doing something, whether it's responding to text messages. I'm watching television, whether it be the news or a meeting. And people don't think about what that does to us mentally. Just, if you think about it, many people, before you go to bed, what are you doing? You have your phone in your hand. You're whether it's I don't know, watching the VOV network, or you're on Facebook, or whatever
TikTok.
you're doing. We're always, always, always in front of something electronic. They have put, think about the electronics that are in our cars now. Yeah, so now when you're driving, you're not just driving, you're watching some screen. When you're in airports and on airplanes, there is no downtime. I am an avid reader, but because I work so much, I don't take the time to read a hard copy
Read.
book. So what did I start doing? I started listening to audio books.
Oh,
So there we
yeah.
go with electronics again. And it
Yeah.
keeps your mind constantly going. And so you're not resting. And so even throughout the day, you can schedule some mental rest time by simply just stepping away from the electronics and just being.
Just being.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I like that. I think I've said that to my friend before. Just
Yeah.
being.
Being.
You want anything you want to add, Bryan?
No, I'll turn it over to Chris. I know he's got a few things he would like to share.
Of course. So I look at these two pieces. We've got the rest piece and the play piece. So
Yeah.
and for me, they can intertwine at different points. For me, rest isn't always sleep. I mean, I'd like it to be sleep, but sometimes rest for me is just laying in a state of being dormant. So that could be just laying on the bed, phone in the other room, phone on D&D, and I'm just trying to unplug from everything. I want to have no thoughts sometimes, because that allows me to start to recharge. Now that I'm at the stage now, I told you guys I just took on this new thing. So I'm running my own company, and I'm starting to run someone else's company. So for me, I have to have moments and hours sometimes. And my new thing I swim. I'm an avid swimmer. I'm an active person. So my new thing is to get to the water. I'm fortunate I live 2 blocks from the ocean. So for me, sometimes it's getting in the water for even 30 minutes. I'll take my lunch, go down, swim, and just decompress. I put the phones in the car. Matter of fact, I have people looking for me, and I say, going swimming, will not be available for the next hour. You know what I mean? So you can text me and call me all you want, but I don't even have the phone in it. You know what I mean? It's in the car. So just setting up people to understand that I have this time. I'm putting it out to the world. I'm using the post to tell people that this is something that I do. It's something that means a lot to me. But one of the things, so that's that play aspect. Like I just finished a 10-day run where I basically was working in some form of fashion between my company and the other company 10 days in a row. That is unsustainable. And I finally took a day out and played. You know how much I love golf, Bryan. I made a day. I told everybody that I worked with and worked for, like, don't call me on Wednesday. Well, why? I said, because I'm going to be on the golf course and I got nothing to say to you folks. You know what I mean?
Right.
I don't have anything to say to you all. Leave me alone. You know, and I talk like that. So understand, the people that I'm comfortable with, I talk to them like that. Leave me alone.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because then that boundary is set. Okay.
Awesome.
There's no mincing of words here. Okay.
Awesome.
But I think you gotta, you know, even like I said, I'm gonna guess we're all grinders. So we're all, you know, deadly into it every day. We're trying to make accomplishments. We're trying to be successful every day. But every once in a while, you have to step off that grind and do something that really speaks to your heart. And golf is one of those things that speaks to my heart. So and swimming. So
absolutely. Get rid of that technology. Find your place.
Yeah.
Make time. Make at the end of the overarching message. Make time for you.
Yep.
That's a definite self-care strategy right there.
No doubt.
100%.
All right, let's move on to the next bullet point on the slides, which we were talking about calm and stillness. And these, the previous one ties together, but a little bit different, I think, the way we look at that from that standpoint. And I'll cover this one for us. Identify the emotions that are likely to spark either reactivity or, practice the patience to be non-reactive, right? And that's a struggle sometimes because, as you said, a lot of the things, and Chris started this off, we were talking earlier in the conversation about, we're not out there looking for this stuff. It's coming at us, right? The emotional things, the mental things that are challenging us. It's not like we're out there trying to hunt it and kill it. It's literally coming after us to a degree. And then sometimes trying to get yourself into a place where you feel like you can manage that and not just be reactive to it, and give it a moment to kind of sink in, so that when you do respond, it is the proper response. It's truly based in the feelings that you feel that you have about it, everything else that's going on with it, the relationship that maybe with you and the other individual, if that's where it's coming from, something like that. And it's not just this reactive, off the hip thing that you throw back, because we can get really caught up in that when things start spinning and we feel the pressure to feel like we need to do something like that. And that's one of the areas that I focus in on a lot is, it's that moment when somebody, and we've all done it, you open up an email, you read the first 3 lines and you go, that son of a, right? And then you immediately start typing. And then as you go through that process, you go, I might want to wait and back away from this keyboard for a minute, because what the response I'm going to send right now is probably not the response that really needs to be sent. And that's really kind of what this talk is talking about here, is being able to find that ability within yourself to take a few heartbeats, to take that step back for a minute, to give it some chance to just, what was the old Martin Lawrence, woosah, right?
Woosah technique.
and let it come down a little bit. Then from that place, now give your response, so that you're not just being totally reactive. You're actually having some proactive thoughts and things that are going to move it forward versus gasoline on the fire. So,
but and with me, and what I found that I have to identify those emotions first, those situations, those people, right? That spark my negative or stressful reactivity. So it's a practice for me, because I have to be in tune, be very self-aware. So I know that if this happens, this is how I'm going to react. So I have to practice those non-reactive measures. So as far as like practicing the non-reactive emotions, practicing patience, practicing facial expressions, because that's a stressor as well. So, and this is very intentional, and especially for me and maybe others that are used to just letting people have it. Like you said, just right off the cuff, just letting people have it. Or people that are just used to saying their first thought. And like you said, just back away from it for a minute. And if it's not the computer, if it's not the phone, if it's not, even if you're in person, just mentally back away from it for a minute and and practice that part before that even happens. And so that's what I do to strengthen my bandwidth. And also it creates a positive space mentally.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where
Mm-hmm.
we're trying to go toward is where we're leaning toward is, providing positive space so we can strengthen our bandwidth. Um, Also, I focus on, like nothing. Listening to music, take a walk, I focus on nothing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's another
Very,
way that I keep calm, is just focus on nothing. I don't know if that's easy for everyone to do, and it takes some work because when we're focusing on nothing, our mind starts to wander while we're sitting there still, and supposed to be focusing on nothing. So it's very intentional.
yeah. What else? Anybody else have something they want to add on top of that?
Just briefly, just doing it on purpose. It doesn't always happen naturally. Bridget, you said earlier about scheduling time, and until it's your norm, you may have to schedule some time to
Absolutely.
just be still and do nothing. Um,
Absolutely. And I
just
put it in my phone. Like
Mhm.
I put a reminder in my phone. So and then I put two reminders. The first reminder is to remind me that at 5 o'clock on tomorrow, and I've picked Sundays, on 5 o'clock on tomorrow. So at 2 o'clock, I have a reminder at 5 o'clock. This is your calm and stillness time. And so that I can start preparing for that and get everything out the way. So I won't be, and we talked about this at the last session, pushing it back and then pushing it back. So now I'm procrastinating my
Right,
calmness and stillness time.
right,
Mm-hmm.
right.
Yeah.
And don't think it has to be a huge block. If you have to start with 5 minutes, start with five
Mm-hmm.
minutes. But it is so very important to do it on purpose.
You talked
Absolutely.
about taking, Brian and I talked about before, just taking some deep breaths, just
Mm-hmm.
in just in the space that you're in, taking some time and just breathing deeply to kind of release that. And you don't have to schedule that at first. Well, at first you may have to schedule that, but
Yeah.
it's just at that point where you're feeling those overwhelming emotions, just step back and take some deep breaths.
Mhm.
Deep breaths. Exactly.
And
Yeah,
knowing that
absolutely.
it's not selfish to do that. So from the standpoint of a caregiver, whether you're a parent or if you are an employer or whatever, knowing that it's not selfish to do that. I've been talking to some people in my group about self-care and what prevents them to do it, prevents them from doing it. And one person said just they feel like sacrifice is what's required of them, that it's selfish to say, hey, I need a moment to myself. And it's not selfish at all.
Absolutely.
I mean, it depends, and I guess when you say you talk with people in your group, I guess it depends on where you are in your life. Because some people have small kids. I mean, they would probably be saying right now, "Oh, you don't know my life.
But
Where
that's
am I
the thing,
supposed to do
though.
that? Because I can't even go in the bathroom and have some calmness
Uh-huh.
without somebody knocking on the door asking, what you doing or something. And so do it in your car. And it's so, I've seen so many commercials where people just sit in their car when they drive to their house, whether it's somebody in there or not, they will sit in their car and just take that self-care time. And that's very minimal, but that is very important that you
Right.
do that. It's monumental really for me, because I do it in the mornings before I go into the classroom. I've made this executive decision to go there, so I might as well get out the car. But I decide, okay, let me just sit for a moment. And then of course I definitely do it when I get back in my car after that day. So you're right. Just, practicing that self-care and not being selfish about it, because self-care is not selfish.
And to your point, even people with small children, and I don't know, some of the listeners might, throw rocks at me, but even with your small children, your small child can be in a crib or in a playpen safely, of course, for 5 minutes. That small child needs you to be rested and whole. And
Absolutely.
so even if it's 5 minutes, I'm a mom, and I felt like I had to do everything all the time. And my daughter was okay when I learned to give myself even just 5 minutes. It does not hurt her to be in her playpen with maybe one toy. She's safe. She's not going anywhere. She's not harmed. Just to go and just sit, even if it's just to breathe, or if you need to cry because you're overwhelmed, or if, whatever the case may be. But even people with small children, children
Absolutely.
are
Thank
very
you for that. Thank you for that encouragement. Encouragement for our listeners that have small kids and feel like they don't have that place to take care of self, even those couple of minutes.
yeah.
You're absolutely correct.
Chris,
Bridget, you want
anything
to
you want to
chime
share on
in?
that?
Oh yeah. I heard a lot of good things from you guys. A lot of things I practice. One of the things that we were talking about I forget who mentioned it. We were talking about the electronics piece. And the data coming at you all the time, and the phones, and I guarantee you, people are taking the phone in the bathroom. I try not to take the phone in the bathroom, but one of the tools that I have really kind of leaned on is the D&D setting on my phone. So my phone goes D&D at 9:30 every night, 9:30 or 10, and it doesn't shut off until 8:30 in the morning. So because I have a propensity, because I do a lot of business from folks on the mainland, we don't know what time it is in Hawaii. Yeah, you know what time it is in Hawaii. You just want to call me anyway, so you don't care. You just don't care.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I started shutting the phone off, and I found that it's hard enough to rest, but I'm finding that was a key piece in even having a good chance of getting rest, was that D&D piece. And I'm guessing most of us are planners. We try to plan our lives as best we can. We obviously know that doesn't work out all the time. That's not 100% success rate on that. It's probably closer to 50 to 40% that the plan comes to fruition, the way that we put it on paper. So we have to be able to not be triggered by that. I mean, we all have triggers. That was one thing I'd heard from something that someone said earlier, and it reminded me that understanding that you have triggers in your life, people, these things landing on your doorstep are potential triggers to how you respond. And for a man, I'm equal parts logic and I'm equal parts emotion. So what I've been working on over the last probably at least 10 years or more is controlling my emotions and not being like you said, Bryan, being reactive. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's a good thing not to have an answer. Like sometimes what I'm learning is, that people pleaser part of me wants to have an answer. Well, I don't always have an answer. And I think sometimes that is the answer. I don't have an answer. But if you give me a little bit of time, I'll have an answer for you. But I need to process this. And being honest with yourself to say, I need process time, especially if it's something sensitive to you, is okay. You know what I mean? Be okay with it. I'm okay with it. And I've actually got to the point where whether you're okay with it or not is of inconsequence to me. You know what I mean? I'm okay with it. So long as I'm okay with it, you're going to have to be, or you can step
You
off.
have to be okay with it, right?
Yeah, or you can step
Absolutely.
off. I mean, it's just that simple for me. You know what I mean? Sorry. You know what I mean? I
I
love
think
you,
sometimes
but
women now, I'm speaking for me as a woman, we just don't have that built in us, that step back, that just don't say anything. We don't have an answer, because as nurturers, we are built to have the answer. And so it has been an aha moment for me to just sit back and say, okay, well, I don't have a response to that right now, because I'm going to come up with one right quick if I didn't in the past. And so to not have an answer, and to explore the emotions that you're feeling at that particular time and not respond, it does, it's a lot of work for women. It's a lot of work
well, that's your
because we're
challenge.
used to having the answer.
So that is your challenge.
Yeah,
Correct?
it is my challenge. It is my challenge, and it is something I'm cultivating, because I realize that it weakens my mental bandwidth, just kind of shooting out answers, and later
Regretting,
regretting
right?
it, and later
Exactly.
regretting it. And so I'm learning, and just in the last month, to kind of say, okay, let me let this soak in for a minute. Because I use comedy as a defense mechanism as well. And so I'm learning to, I'm not doing a really good job of it, but I'm learning to not respond with something comical, as a cover up, and just kind of sit with how I'm feeling. So yeah, women have a lot harder time doing that than men do. I don't know, Shante, do you agree or disagree?
I agree. I definitely think it's something that has to be learned, uh,
Mhm.
just because of upbringing. So I do agree that it's not a natural uh, way to respond.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Well, if I can chime in, it, I that's something that was for me was a very big weakness. That wanting to respond. Like you say, you just for whatever reason it's there, and you got it. You feel like you have to respond. And I've the old adage. Sometimes they say sometimes what's right doesn't feel right.
Hmm.
Sometimes not responding doesn't, and I think in most instances it doesn't feel right. That
Hmm.
doesn't mean it's any less right. And I
Right.
think that's the cultivation. That's the tool. That's one of those tools in the toolbox that have to be cultivated. That occasionally, I'd say every time, but occasionally, depending on the subject matter, it's okay to say I don't have an answer. Let me take this under advisement. You know what I mean? Because you want to. I mean, I think at the end of the day, for me, and I say for me, I want to. If I'm being called upon to give you information or advice or whatever you want to call it, I want to give you the best that I can give you. And
Hmm.
sometimes that requires me to pull back for a few minutes and really digest whatever the subject matter is so I can give you what I believe is a credible response.
Yeah.
Because I think I owe you that. If you brought something to me, I owe you my best. And
Mhm.
that's kind of where I'm at. I get
I like the
promoted.
way that I like the way that works.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I'm literally trying to take your question or your situation or whatever it is may be, and I'm trying to take it to heart because I consider it in most cases an honor that you brought it to me. You know what I mean? Obviously, there's certain subjects people are going to bring to you like, why are you even bringing that to me? You know what I mean? But
Mm.
still, in the same respect, there seems to be a trust factor in this somewhere swirling around this, and I just don't take that lightly. I just
Mhm.
don't. You know what I mean?
Mm.
I learned a long time ago that I have this. Brian, you and I have talked about this. I have the ability to affect lives. I
Mhm.
can affect it positively, or I damn sure can affect it
Affect the
negatively.
negative.
Okay,
That's right.
and I'm at a point in my life where I really want to try to affect you positively. That's the end game for me. Okay,
Mhm.
so I don't, like I said, I don't take it lightly, and maybe I'm putting too much into this, but that's just how I
No,
feel.
no, not at all.
Yeah. Agreed. I absolutely agree. I want to share a quick story. This because this is kind of the thing that I came up with for the whole calmness and stillness, and then once you start getting into this arena, your mind picks up on things just throughout the day, right? So whether you're watching someone else's interchange between people you don't even know, or something on television, you hear something on the radio, it resonates in your brain. So I was watching something and half watching it on TV, and there was a veterans group. They were having one of those veterans meetings where a lot of them might be doing like PTSD and those kinds of things. So it's kind of a self help counseling kind of group. And the one guy's doing his little testimony about why he comes to the group and why he appreciates having that time with the guys. And he described his time there with these words. And I'm like, I'm stealing that, and that is me. And he says, "These are my pockets of peace." And that was like, oh.
Like
So
a
that
light
is
bulb moment.
what I say. That's, and Shantae was saying, be intentional. So my thing now, as I am intentionally going to be scheduling my own pockets of peace, and that's what I'm going to call them. And then I'll choose what to put in those pockets of peace as I go through it. But that was it was
Hmm.
like a lightning bolt. So I absolutely loved it, and I made a note of it. I was sitting on the couch and I got up, ran to the desk. I gotta write that down before I forget, kind of thing. So
It's a piece.
I wanted to share
Very
that.
good. Very good. I like that.
Can I share something right quick?
Sure.
So I know I told you guys a little bit ago that I've been swimming a lot more lately. I've been actually, because I haven't been able to get to it based on my available time. I haven't been able to get. Yeah, I'm a gym guy. I love the gym. I mean, that's the place I go work out a lot of my in head issues. It's all about the reps. For me, it's the
Mhm.
reps. We're talking. I thought about that when we were. I was trying to figure out how what I was going to say when we talk about the mental bandwidth, and I was like, this is about reps. This is
Mhm.
about development and reps. So you got to keep showing up and just putting in for me, the curls or whatever it is you're doing, it's the reps. But one of the things I did yesterday, I did what I did yesterday, and I had planned to go swimming. I was actually planning to meet a friend of mine over at the beach, younger cat, like to share knowledge with him. You know Javon, right? Remember Javon?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I swim out the water. I mean, it's late in the day yesterday. The tide's coming in, so the water's high. I swim to the reef. That's about 300 yards out off the water. It's a decent swim, and the waves are just coming in on me. And yesterday when I swam, I was attacking it, so I was literally coming at it full bore. I'm just like going in. Got in the water yesterday. I was like, first of all, I got on alert because the water was so high. I was like, oh my God, I got to look at this a little bit differently. Mm-hmm. So I got out there, right? So I got out, and what I did was I slowed my pace down. So in other words, because I'm literally the waves are coming in, and I'm trying to go out. So if you're not an experienced swimmer, it can create some, some anxiety in your body if you're not comfortable in the water. I'm very comfortable in the water, but still the water is not something you play with. Okay.
Right.
So I slowed my pace, and I got to where I got my breathing and my cadences down to where I was hitting the waves, and when they were coming down, I was going over them. So they come down, I'm going over, as opposed to the day before when I'm running smack dab into it. I got salt water in my eyes. I'm spitting out salt water. I mean, it's just like pure nightmare almost. But I mean, right. I'm into it. But I figured that out yesterday. I was like, calm down, slow down, and this thing will work for you. And I consequently, because I mean, 300 yards. I don't know if any of you swim, but 300 yards against the grain is it's a little bit of an undertaking.
Yeah.
So, but I figured it out, and it actually, my mind got at peace. I was like, okay, I got this. I literally, because my goal is to, I'm goal orientated. My goal was to get out to that reef, and by hell or high water, I was getting out there. Okay. Yeah. So what's that?
I said a great analogy. That's a great analogy. Slow your pace.
Yeah, and that's all about learning, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the overarching learning from the day before. I learned something. I had been fighting it. So I guess my message is the previous days I had been fighting this current, and all of a sudden I slowed it down, and I thought about it. I looked at it, and I was like, okay, I got it. I figured it out. Now we have a chance to be successful.
The lesson.
Yep. You learn to work with it, right? Versus trying to fight against it. Yeah,
yes.
Absolutely.
I love that.
Yeah. I love that. All right. So I think we're on the final one. Bridget, you want to cover that one for us?
Yes. Cultivate meaningful work. Tap into that creative side of you again, and begin to finish that, whatever that is. Finish whatever that is. So meaningful work, and for me, meaningful work is something that so we're big on purpose, we're big on vision. So something that is connected to the vision and purpose that we have. So for me, that meant to tap into the creative side of me again, which means I had to have to finish some poetry that I had started. I was going through some journals, some old journals, and I keep a lot of journals throughout the months. I write in my journals, and I was going through some old ones from years ago. And Bryan and I talked about this, some of the topics, and I looked at the dates. And so I had poetry and quotes that I had left just lying dormant and unrevealed. So I decided to get back into that and strengthen that creative side of me, and finish what I started, with the end result of publishing. Mm-hmm. Okay. And so also in terms of meaningful work, I have wrote my whole vision that God has given me for my life, right? He's directed that. So I am believing that that's what my vision and my purpose is. And so in cultivating meaningful work, I'm putting an action plan in place to make this vision real. And even more so, I'm doing the work to bring this vision to fruition, even if it means workshops, master classes, etc., to research and develop my purpose. And this is definitely a bandwidth strengthener, and I feel like I owe it to my legacy, really, to strengthen my bandwidth in that manner. Yeah. So that is that's my strategy for meaningful work.
Bridget, I want to chime in on that because we did have that conversation where you were sharing some of the old poems and different documents that you had, and it's fascinating because when you talk about focus on that meaningful work, and again we get so busy or call it overwhelmed, whatever terms you want to use, we forget how important those things are to self, and it goes back to what Shantae was saying about self care, about what motivates you, about what truly feeds your heart, mind, and soul. um, and some of the dates, Bridget, some of the things she had was 2011.
2011.
Yeah, so which is, you think about, it's more than a decade ago. And so obviously she had some visions and some insights and some things that were really important to her. So important that she had pages of it that she had documented, but it's been dormant. And that's the thing we have to remind ourselves is it's okay to hang on to those things, to stay focused on those things, to bring them to the forefront of our lives, because it's all part of keeping your whole mental self focused, whole, and able to cope and to deal. Because if it wasn't important to you, you wouldn't have taken the time to write it down in the first place. So hang on to those things, follow, see them through, because it's very important. And obviously
Absolutely.
VOV is one for me right now. It's really driving me, and from that standpoint. But yeah, I can totally, because same thing. The concept of VOV goes back to 2017, but it's really just now me taking the effort to get in front of it. So
And the same with me with building bridges. Like all of the material, all the journals that I found that were incomplete, and the poetry that I found, and the quotes, but the quotes were relatable to now. And
mhm,
so, knowing of me, I was writing these things down. I was, kind of mapping out my vision before I even knew what the vision was. And
mhm,
so, now I can use those things. That's basically what I did. What I'm doing is using those things that I wrote then for now. And so it was almost like it was already planned. It was just a part of my path and a part of my journey.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Shantae or Chris, anything to add on top of that?
Yeah, what came to mind for me on this point of cultivating meaningful work was to do that work that was meaningful to me, not to
Mhm.
someone else. And
Don't-
so,
Hello.
what
Absolutely.
brought that on is, when I started my coaching business, I was so into what the industry said I should do. I should post on social media this many times. And, my post should be about these things. And your business has to look like that. And your offer needs to look like that. And I was so overwhelmed and
Mhm.
so distracted from my purpose. And, I'm stressed out, and I'm praying, and I'm saying, Lord, I know this is what you have called me to do. Why is this not going in a better direction? Why do I not feel better about it? And he just told me it was because I was trying to run the business the way that everybody else said I should, and not the way he told me that I should.
It should.
So
Amen.
I've had to learn to do the things that are meaningful to me, because that is how I will connect with people. That's how God will use me the most, because as he puts things into me, they'll come out the way they're supposed to if I just
Mhm.
listen to him and do what I'm supposed to do. But if I'm
Right.
trying to do what this person says do versus that person, and they don't mean anything to me, right? It's you're doing something because you think you have to, and so that passion is not there, and that drive is not there, and so it doesn't produce the same outcome. So
Mhm.
cultivating the work that is meaningful to me, and it kind of ties in with what Chris said earlier about being a people pleaser. We get stuck in trying to do what's meaningful to everybody else instead of what's meaningful to us. So I too, I raised my hand earlier, am a recovering people pleaser, but
People pleaser, right?
definitely trying to
Yeah.
do those things that are meaningful to me. And then outside of work, because everybody in your audience doesn't own a business, doesn't want to own a business. But even just in my family, there were things I was doing in my household that my husband would say, you don't have to do that, or my daughter didn't care or whatever. And I finally had to say, well, these things are important to me. This is the type of wife that I want to be. But these other things I can let go because I thought I had to be that for y'all. And so just even in my personal life, just doing those things that are meaningful to me, it really keeps me um level headed, because then at the end of the day, it doesn't matter whether someone else liked it. It doesn't matter whether someone else tuned in or bought it or what have you. It was meaningful to me. So I got
Yeah,
out of it what I needed to get out of it.
Right.
absolutely.
And even when
Absolutely.
you do that, when you start to, cultivate your craft or your business the way other people thought you should did it, or listening to other people, or doing it the way they do it on social media. And I like to play on words. You really, instead of creating a business, you're creating a busy mess. That's what you're
I'm
doing.
busy, man. Yes, yes.
And so, yeah, just getting whatever is meaningful work to you is the most
Mhm.
important. So
Yep,
I,
I
I
couldn't agree.
absolutely agree.
Yep.
I
Chris, what about you?
well, I honest to God, I mean, when you're doing these things that we do, um, obviously, typically there's a whoever you're involved with or whatever, if it's an organization or whatever, or what the mission is, the mission statement, the end game. Um, a lot of times on the outset, it doesn't necessarily marry up with what speaks to you. So you got to try to figure out how to get them to come together, so to speak.
Hmm, hmm, hmm.
Because really, I think a lot of times we have put our feelings on the back burner of what, you know it's speaking to us. I think that's so undervalued in professionals today. You can have it. I think to a certain extent, you can have it both ways. You can achieve the objective while also feeding your soul, or or
Hmm,
your purpose in life.
hmm.
But sometimes it is a fight, and you need to or a battle, or whatever. Maybe fight's a poor word to use. It's a challenge. Let's stay with
Hmm.
the challenge word. But you've got to meet that challenge head on. How do I make this so I am getting benefit besides the compensation piece? Because a lot of times there's a compensation piece, but that's not what it's always all about. If you get lost into just the compensation piece, you're never going to be happy. You know what I
Right.
mean? If that's how you value your life, strictly on dollars and cents, which I don't. I mean, it's a big piece, but I'm learning that that's not everything.
Right.
Yeah,
It's just not.
it's
So
just not.
really, it's about doing your soul the justice that it deserves. At the end of the day,
Yeah.
that's the way I'm learning to speak about myself. I deserve this. I deserve to be happy. I deserve. You know what I mean? You preface that in your affirmations.
Yeah.
Your
Yeah.
affirmations. I deserve this. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
And I think the wheels, the squeaky wheel will get the grease, and you will move forward in life. I'm starting to see that. It's difficult. It's always difficult in the beginning when you're talking about something new, some new facet that you're adding to your life. And in our case, we're obviously talking about mental and emotional facets that we're adding to our lives. Um, but it's an evolutionary thing. So we where we are today is because we evolved to where we are today.
Mhm.
Hmm.
I see Brian. I'll put it out there. I told Brian 2 weeks ago when we got together. We got together for our monthly adult beverages, and nobody prompted me to this. I said, Brian, because I said, Brian, I would not be the man that I am today had we not have the relationship that we have. You brought so much to my table, and I just thought you should know that how I feel.
Hmm.
You know,
Hmm.
and I'm sure that I said it for a couple of reasons. I said it for reason one was I wanted to acknowledge Brian. I just wanted to
Hmm.
acknowledge what his contribution to my life is. Secondly, I wanted him to know that he's on the right path to what he's trying to do, and to keep it on. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
That's really that's the two things the message I wanted to deliver to him at that particular moment, because I think
Exactly.
we need that every once in a while. Hey, tell me I'm
Hmm.
doing something right. I mean, tell
Hmm.
Absolutely.
from your
Absolutely.
eyes, tell me I'm doing something right. Okay, it's easy
Hmm.
to criticize. Tell me I'm doing something right.
Always.
And
Always
that's what I
easy.
went into. That's what I went into that day with. I like, you know what? I need to tell this brother what's going on.
Yeah.
What he brings to my table.
Yeah.
You know what I
Oh,
mean?
I applaud
I,
you for that. I applaud you for that. As a man, I applaud you for that.
Hmm. Hmm.
That's
well, I just think we just don't say it enough.
yeah.
You know,
We don't. Yeah. And like you said, we talked about as men, not, you know, we're supposed to be tough and, pound our chest and, boys don't cry and trust me, that night there were tears on both sides of the table as we had that conversation, right?
I got teary eyed delivering the message. I'm telling you right now. I'm sitting there like,
Exactly.
Wow,
But that's the realness of it. But that's what matters, right? That's where you want to come from, as we were talking about a little while ago, expressing that, needing the time to think, process through, and then come from a place of it being real, it being your true emotions, and being willing and being open to put yourself out there. Shantae mentioned way back in the conversation earlier, talking about risk and vulnerability. Same thing. I mean, all of these things, even though we've broken them into categories, they technically all still tie together. They're all linked in
Right.
various ways.
Right.
Because obviously Chris had to open himself up. He had to take a risk. He had to be vulnerable. But that's truly what he was feeling from an emotional standpoint in that point in time. And he wanted to make sure that that was shared and that the recognition was put out there. And that's the key of all of this as we talk about your mental bandwidth, getting to a place where you're so comfortable with self that you have all your capacities, all your faculties under control, and you can respond from that place of power, that place of control, the true emotions that are behind it, the vulnerability that that takes, and be okay with that, and not overthink it, overprocess it, the whole nine yards. So is it a lot? Yes. Can it be done? Yes, it can, but
Absolutely.
you have to work at it. Just like, and that's the whole point of the session, is to share what you plant in that garden, and then from there, obviously, you got to groom it, grow it, prune it every now and then. So it's an ongoing, never-ending process. But that's the work that actually needs to get done.
a lot of times people think being vulnerable is a weakness, but actually it takes a lot of strength to be vulnerable. And so I just like to dismiss that myth that if you're vulnerable, you're weak. It takes a lot of strength to do that.
It does.
To openly be vulnerable.
well, at the end of the day, when we start talking about vulnerability and allowing ourselves to be vulnerable, for me, we're creating strength. I mean, we are, because you're gonna, and it'll manifest in a lot of different ways that you don't even see coming. You know what I mean? But I find that candor, and obviously it has to be around the right people. I mean, obviously we all have people in our lives that I can't talk to them like I talk to Bryan, because they don't get it. You know what I mean? And that doesn't mean that they're bad people. They just don't get it. You know what I mean? And just understand that about who you're dealing with sometimes. You know what I mean? I just know that the intimate conversations I have with Bryan, there's only 3 or 4 to 5 people, and some of those are family members that I can actually have those kind of conversations with. And the rest of the world either doesn't care, or they don't have the mental bandwidth to actually be able to digest the content that I'm delivering.
Yeah,
So
it's about trust as well. It's about trust as well.
But we have to understand that. You have to understand what you're dealing with. You know what I mean?
Right.
And make a conscious decision. Am I going to go in there, or am I not going to go in there?
Right.
Sometimes that decision is, I'm not going in there. It's just not worth it. The cost is not worth it to me. So those are decisions we make also.
Yep. Let's bring this home. Final thoughts. So here's our question for today. And this is to our audience, obviously, but also for us, based on what we've learned and what we shared within this session today. Knowing what we've each brought into it individually, what we've each shared as we've gone through it, and then what our final takeaways are going to be for that. So, what will your garden contain to help you cultivate stronger mental and emotional bandwidth? So I'll start, since I'm reading the question. And I think for me, a couple of my greatest challenges go back to what Shantae shared earlier about the risk and vulnerability. And that comes out of me from the standpoint of, who am I to say, getting comfortable with that piece of it, right? Who am I? Because one of the short story, I meet once a quarter with a business consultant, and he's a good friend and an ex family member as well, through a marriage in the family, and I've known him for a long time, and he's a very credible business person. And we just had a meeting yesterday, And in that conversation, I give him some feedback on what I see he's doing with his business. He gives me feedback on what he's seeing I'm doing with VOV, and it's this reciprocal thing that we have. And one of the things he asked in the conversation was, so you're doing this, I said, you're doing that. When are you going to write a book? Right. And that's his question. And I've always said in my mind, I'd like to write a book someday. But then the moment I have that thought and even think about doing it, my next thought is, well, who am I to write a book? So I immediately crush my own thought. Right. And that's a pattern that's there. So we kind of talked that through a little bit yesterday. And coming out of that conversation, I am now formatting a layout for a book because I'm going to do it.
Good.
So those are the types of things that it's an ever growing, ever moving process, and you have to figure out where you're comfortable, how you can work your way through it. But that's an area of vulnerability for me that I have purposefully put away and not wanted to deal with. But now I'm actually going to rip off the Band-Aid and go forward with it. But that's what this is about, is figuring those things out for yourself, and then putting a plan. And as I said, with the pockets of peace, and from there, I'm going to take it and I'm going to move forward. So those are my takeaways from the last couple of days, and definitely through this session today.
Applause. We put that book topic in the atmosphere in another conversation. So that's great. Congratulations. I would say for me, what will be in my garden, what it would contain, would be experience. For those of you that don't know me, I have had lived a life up until this point, and which led me to become a mentor for teenagers and young women. It has been very interesting and a lot of hardships, a lot of successes and wins, definitely a lot of losses. And so where I am now, because I have, my children are adults. And so now I mentor teenagers and young adults. I take that experience that I had, that I've been afforded back then, and let that drive me to where I am now. Sometimes I don't recognize how strong I am based on the past until I have to sit down and kind of come to myself and realize, well, you overcame that, so you can overcome this, and you've done this, so you can do that. And sometimes I have to sit and just make note of those things, just so in those situations, just so it can push me forward. And so that is what I will put in my garden to cultivate a strong and mental and emotional bandwidth. It's just experience from my past, which I never thought my past would drive me to move forward, or would give me the strength that I need. I never thought my struggle would give me the strength that I need for such a time as this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for sharing that. That's important. Shante, what would you like to share?
My garden will contain just permission to be me in just every aspect of my life, permission and priority. Because I am such a giver of everything, that's how I show love in a lot of ways. I often end up being on the back end of everything:
Mm-hmm.
business, pleasure, life, family. And I've
Mm-hmm.
learned, and I'm trying to teach other people, that if you put yourself first, you take responsibility for what your life is going to be, self care, um, your emotions, all of that, then you have everything that you need to be what you want to be to someone else.
Right.
So when you are always on the back end, your cup is always empty. You're always tired. You haven't gotten enough rest. So your body is fatigued. But if I give myself permission to be me, so like I mentioned earlier, not be like anyone else, not run my business like someone else runs their business, but also to say, hey, I need this moment for me, then my cup is full. Then my ideas are fresh. Then I'm able to be used in the best way. I think it was Chris that said, when someone comes, you want to give them the best answer, the best you. And so I took
Mm-hmm.
from that taking care of me allows me to be what I already want to be for everyone else. So my garden will contain permission to be me and prioritize myself.
That's
Awesome.
great. I
That is
always use the analogy for it being in the back end. If you're a leader, you can't lead from the back. And so you're always trying to pull yourself up from the rear, and you're struggling all the time to keep up because you're trying to lead from the back. And so
Mhm.
keeping yourself first will always ensure that you have what you need to lead and to take care of yourself and to show up as your best self for others.
Mhm.
And not in a way that's conceited, but in a way
Right.
that's
Correct.
caring.
Right.
Because there are some people who are narcissistic that put themselves first.
Yeah,
That's a
really?
real thing, and they put
Yeah.
themselves first in a different way. And so,
Right.
just so your listeners understand, it's not the same. It's the arrogance and the conceit and the narcissism are not the same. This is a different type of prioritizing yourself and
Right.
giving yourself self care, and
Absolutely.
the permission to be.
It's leading to show up, as your best self for others as well
Mhm,
as yourself.
mhm.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Chris, what about you?
All right, now y'all done opened up a can of worms.
Oh,
Okay.
Lord.
So I got 5 bullet points I want to hit on, but I also want to touch base on real quick before I jump into those bullet points. One of the things I heard was, and it is, I didn't know how it was going to come out, but it was something that I had thought about early before we came on today, was pulling your ego out of it.
Mm.
Especially from a male perspective. And I realize women have egos too. So I'm not trying to say you guys don't have egos, but we're fueled by our egos, to be honest with
Mhm.
you, because that's what society has done for us. So
Right.
that's one thing that I've worked on over the years to try to pull and with Brian's help, because he's such a selfless guy, you know what I mean? So I've learned that from him, you know what I mean, to because it's not about my ego. It's not what my emotions are telling me. It's what the facts are telling me. So,
Mhm.
making it more about the subject matter as opposed to about me. I
Mhm.
think that really helps us to grow and deliver those messages that we want to deliver. And that was part of the reason I had said about I pull back, if I don't have the answer for you, because your reactionary answer is my ego's talking. That's literally what ends up having, my ego's talking. So I have to work on that daily to pull my ego out of the equation. Okay. So I just want to say that. But as far as what's in my garden moving forward, I'll just give it to you. First and foremost is I need to learn how to be more patient with myself. Um, um, the next one would be learning how to be more kind and loving to myself in these
Mm.
situations. Okay. Um, Leaning on my life experiences more and trusting those things,
Pursuing those things, yeah.
because we all have a wealth of experience. I
Yeah.
guarantee you that.
Yeah.
Trusting it.
Trust in it.
And
Yeah.
and then what you said, I believe you said, Shantae, was giving myself permission to be me,
Mhm.
which I think is huge. I think that's so underrated
Mhm.
as an attribute.
Mhm.
And it is also has to be those 3 things, those 3 points I just made. They have to be you have to keep self affirming those things. They just have to be. You have to keep it until it becomes rooted in who you are and what you're about every day, and to almost to where it's just second nature in
Second
your thought.
nature. Yeah.
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 And then lastly, which I want to thank all you, because this is for me, today represents a first and a new, as I announced earlier when we were in the green room, that I'm a podcast virgin. Um,
Mhm.
I want to continue to, and Brian, you and I have talked about this also. I want to continue to keep developing my coaching mentorship um, traits. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? Because that speaks to me on a very high level. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And I think you all can agree that it is exhausting at times.
Mhm.
The way we all are, it's tiring and tireless. You
Mhm.
know what I mean?
Mhm.
So it does require that aspect of pulling back and taking that me time and that self-care, those aspects of your life. You literally have to get everything kind of working as a unit for you to not burn out.
Absolutely.
I think all of
Yeah.
us have suffered from burnout periodically, so we have to be
Yep.
conscious of that also.
Agreed. Absolutely agree.
Absolutely.
Chris, thank you for sharing that. We're gonna kind of land the plane, as they say, and end this for today. This has been amazing. Thank
Yes.
each and every one of you for sharing and being willing to put obviously your personal information out there to a degree, and as we said, take a risk, take some vulnerability, be exposed, et cetera, et cetera. But the key is, as we came into this at the very beginning, is if we can what we share today can change one life in a positive direction, then it's all worth it, right? Because
Yes.
that's what
Yes.
matters. At the end of the day, we have, I think, a responsibility to ourselves to be the best self we can possibly be,
Mhm.
and to take that and use it uh, to help others. And I think we've done that in spades today. So I greatly appreciate each and every one of you for joining today.
Thank
For
Can I
our
say
audience out
one
there, thank
last
you
thing?
so much. Go for it. Absolutely.
This all represents risk. Okay.
It does.
All the things that we talked about today, all the things, all the action that we carry out on a day in and day out basis with our families, with our professional lives and stuff like that, it represents a risk. But my
It does.
reality is no risk, no reward.
Right.
If you're not willing to risk something in your life, and if you're not willing to expose yourself to some degree, I'm not telling our listeners that they need to expose themselves on the level that we are, because we've grown to this level.
Right.
But it has to start somewhere. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Correct.
It just has to. And it's
you.
Has
usually
to.
the smallest of things that you think is the biggest of
Right.
things that can open and unlock some of what keeps us down. Okay.
Absolutely.
So
I like
that's
that.
my overarching message that I want to put my bow on this thing and say. Okay.
I
Thank you.
like that. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. So that's going to bring us to a close for today. Again, thank all of our audience for sticking with us. It's a long session today, but an amazing amount of information. So much that you can use to help plant in your own garden, have it be groomed and grow and prune it so that it fits your life, and you can accomplish the things that you want to accomplish. Become the you want to be. And I love what Shantae said about. Be that authentic you that you also need to be. That's going
Yes.
to be the key to all of it, because that's when you're going to be able to give and help others, when you're coming from that true place of centered and being your true self. Until next time, everyone, take care. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we will definitely see you live. We don't have a confirmed date for the next session, but we will get that out there. But until then, take care of each other. We'll see you soon.
Bye bye.
Bye now.
Aloha.